Kulilonge Moody.
Honorable Chair, I just wanted to confirm that from the last cohort, I had been on the Defense and Security Committee of Parliament. Thank you.
Noted. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Permission to engage the witness. Chair, I've got a few questions that I would want you to clarify. The first one is that as a commander, at the material time, you were the highest ranking military officer in the country. Is it correct that all military operations, including the transportation of VVIPs, required your ultimate authorization?
General, yes or no, so we can proceed?
I want to say yes, Honorable Chair.
Okay.
Aircraft are strategic assets. It's not something that you cannot send willingly and say you are in command. No. These are assets that actually need to be protected. You can actually take it from the fact that we are meeting here because an aircraft made an accident. That actually is information enough or reason enough to say aircraft use and utilization requires to be authorized at the highest level. Should things or incidents of this nature transpire, then certainly we must be able to answer. That's why highest command is required to give his hand of authority on their use.
So in summary is that you are confirming that the ultimate authorization came from you?
I won't disassociate myself with ultimate, because from my presentation you have seen the consultation which took place. A minister was consulted, then the president were consulted. So if we actually use ultimate, then I am afraid to say I was the ultimate authority. If I was the ultimate, outrightly, I was going to say, yes, fly this aircraft to Mzuzu, but I did not do that. Thank you, honorable member of the committee.
Okay. Do you accept that the safety of the VVIPs fell within your command responsibility?
Very, very correct. And not only VVIP, but anything that is human. Anything that is human fall under my care of responsibility.
Is it correct that MDF has a standard operating procedure for VVIP transport, which requires that the commander personally approve any flight carrying the vice president or the president?
Yes, that is very, very correct. But I want to deviate a bit. There are two. One is a standing operating procedure, and the other one is a standard operating procedure. Of the two answer to this question, but there are differences, or I would say there are nuances.
Is it correct that you personally approved the flight of the Donia on the 10th June 2024, carrying the vice president and the 8 other passengers?
It is not correct because I've referred to two people I consulted, the minister and the president. So I wouldn't actually fall into answering to say yes, yes, yes. No, I consulted two people, and that is in black and white in this presentation which I made.
Maybe just as a follow-up, yes, you had said about a consultation, but I'm talking of approving to say this flight, this plane can take off. Did you personally approve that?
Yes, I did. After receiving authority from the powers that be at the time, then certainly I had to approve following those lines of authority.
Now, if you can just the mic. From our engagement with the President General, one of the considerations that is taken into account before the flight is approved is weather constraints. In this particular case, did you get a briefing on the weather before approving that the Donia should fly from Zuzu to Lilongwe and back?
There was an approval, and this is coming from the reflection or the background that the aircraft was in Munzuzu, and it was able to fly from Munzuzu to Lilongwe. So the opposite is true as well, to say at that time, the thinking of the pilots at that time were that maybe they were going to be able to arrive at their destination. If that was not the case, then certainly the onus was upon them to actually give us the factors that would have restricted their flying back to Mzuzu. If they were able to fly to Lilongwe, then certainly on arrival, they had maybe the audacity to be able to say, we cannot fly back because of these factors. But they were able to say, no, we are going to fly. I thank you, honorable member of the committee.
Thank you, General. You've not answered the question. The question was, did you get any weather briefing before approving the flight from Zuzu to Lilongwe and back? Because one of the considerations before approval is made is weather, the general called it weather constraints. So in this case, before proceeding to give an approval, did you get any weather briefing from your meteorological unit in, sorry for the mic, if you can, in Zomba, on the conditions of the weather obtaining on the particular day before approving the chartering out or hiring of the vehicle, of the flight by the office of the Vice President? Thank you.
Thank you very much. They gave us a briefing, or they gave me the briefing. I got this from the Air Force to say they could be able to fly. Then that was the reason why I said the mission could actually proceed. Thank you, honorable member of the committee.
So the briefing was that the pilots were cleared to say whether in Mzuzu is okay, you can go fly from Mzuzu to Lilongwe. The weather is okay, to and from. So in short, there was clearance as regarding to weather on this particular day by your meteorological unit based in Zomba. Is that correct?
Is that it?
No. Just. Geno, you have indicated in the engagement, the fellow members of Parliament, that various operational responsibilities were delegated to subordinate officers. Would you agree that delegation does not remove accountability and that a commander remains responsible for ensuring that systems of supervision, monitoring, and accountability are functioning effectively?
I agree.
Now, if those systems failed, does that not represent a failure of command at the highest level?
I'm not sure if any failure was noticed. And in my presentation, if at all it was mentioned, it did not fail. Certain things would be able to malfunction. Nature is nature. Anything that is made by man can be subjected to failure. And that is normal. I think we should be able to understand that, honorable member of the committee. So yes, you cannot actually discount accountability when you're talking about matters of delegation. I want to say yes, you remain accountable through and through. But there are certain instances where certain things would not work according to what is planned. So we cannot generalize or come with with kind of a generalization to say, yes, maybe this failed because maybe you did not supervise. I want to run away from that, because that would not be a correct position of trying to arrive at a position.
Geno, would you agree that a commander is expected not only to respond to problems once they arise, but also to identify risks, prevent failures, and ensure that adequate systems are in place before tragedy occurs?
Yes, I would want to accept that, but I'll give a scenario. You are an institution, or you have a car and you have a driver. You want to send that driver to collect a parcel either in Blantyre or Mzuzu. You are thinking will be he's going to be able to arrive Blantyre or Mzuzu. But along the way, that driver makes or maybe encounters an accident. Would that be equated to say you were not responsible, or you were accountable maybe to maybe the accident that actually transpired? Maybe no. There are certain forces of nature that will actually take place. And a margin of error in anything that is actually planned is allowed in an operation. So I think we need to live with that kind of understanding.
Finally, given the issues that have emerged before this committee, one of which is you authorizing an airplane with no functional ETL? Is it ELT? Again, allowing the plane to go to Mzuzu and land at an airport that is not certified to with safety for landing, would that not construe negligence on your part?
Honorable, the last part.
Okay, so maybe I should take it from here. You can confirm that you authorized or allowed a plane that had no function, ELT, to fly the Vice President and the 8 others, isn't it? I should start from there first.
Thank you very much. I want to actually refer you to the consultations. You note that I talked to, or I consulted the Air Force commander to say, can this aircraft be able to expedite the mission? He gave me a positive. If it was a positive from an expert, even if it was you, what would you do?
No, I just wanted to confirm that you allowed a plane that had no functioning ELT to fly the Vice President and the rest of the passengers, isn't it?
So maybe while you're there, at the time that you were authorizing, did you know that the aircraft was an aircraft ambulance and not an aircraft VVIP anymore? Because it was configured to carry a coffin carrying late Rafka Sambara. So at the time you were authorizing the aircraft ambulance, were you aware that the Vice President's comfortability and convenience on this particular flight will be compromised? Because he was sitting in an area in an area that was configured not for VIP.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I want to say no, because these people, when they were being tasked, they actually configure the aircraft. If the aircraft was being configured to ferry a dead body, certainly the configuration would be different. And when the Vice President was being allowed to actually take the aircraft and travel to Mzuzu, certainly there was supposed to be the exercise of reconfiguring the aircraft back to a VVIP status. If that did not happen, then maybe that was the fault of those that were operating the aircraft. But that was not supposed to be the case. And I'm sure these people knew and understood that the person they were going to actually transport with his entourage was actually carrying a status of a VVIP. Then certainly that configuration was supposed to have taken place. I want maybe to actually articulate in that manner in the response to this question. Now coming to this, that I did authorize an aircraft. It was a recommendation from my subordinates. I consulted, is the aircraft okay? The issue of the ELT, okay, electronic locating or locator a transponder. Understand what transpired, and I hope maybe the gentleman who was the chief of the Air Force, commander of the Air Force, will come and articulate about this issue. The transponder is not that was faulty, no. It's that it had changed, it had been modernized, and it could not actually respond to the modern transponders. And as such, they could actually, no, it could not actually conform with the new or the new or the replaced transponders on other aircraft. That was the issue. So it was an old ELT, and not that actually it was expired. But that, I think there was a reconfiguration, and it could not actually respond to the new frequencies which were actually applied to new ELTs. So if you ask me about authorizing is something that was faulty, I want to say, or I want to transfer responsibility to the gentleman who I had consulted and actually give me an express authority or maybe an express, yes, General, this aircraft can be able to actually operate effectively and is serviceable. Thank you.
Okay, I remember you had asked me to say the second part. Okay, so I was on the issue of negligence. So one, the premise was that you, despite knowing that the plane was faulty, nevertheless authorized it to go, and the ferry VVIP, with the late Vice President and the passengers. The second arm of the negligence was that you allowed this plane to go to Mzuzu, an aerodrome that is not licensed.
This part, I'm not aware that the aerodrome is not licensed. For your information, maybe it's information from you. So, civic me, honorable member of the committee. I didn't mention that, you are mentioning it. I'm very happy that I have learned. But at the time, that information was unavailable to me.
Yeah, actually, this is what you, as a general, should have acclimatized yourself. Is the flight safe? Is it safe for the passengers? Where is it going? Is it safe for landing? So, had you taken yourself to go through these protocols, you should have known that Mzuzu Aerodrome is not licensed to for planes to land on that to land there. So my question remains that don't you think your office was negligent in failing to oversee these safety concerns? 40 plane, 2 unlicensed aerodrome. Thank you.
So maybe just to answer what he said, he didn't know, the general didn't know, but the issue is we were informed by Mzuzu Airport, aviation authorities, that the airport is not licensed. That's what we were informed, also confirmed by aviation authorities. So the question is, how come you were not made aware when this was common knowledge within the aviation that Mzuzu Airport was not licensed?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think maybe it was an oversight on their part to actually secure this kind of information, because time and again the airport was being utilized by ourselves and a number of people that we were transporting using the same asset or the same platform to Mzuzu and back to Leong. And not only on this route, but other routes as well. So yes, it would be called negligence, but understand we are coming from where this was not actually announced to us. It was never secreted. Otherwise, maybe we're going to get it as a caveat and say, no, we cannot actually expedite this because of this. Thank you, Honorable Chair. But I want to move away from the parameter of negligence.
Well, we can't run away from it. We can't move, but we can't run away from it. It's something that we're talking about, and it will depend on the facts that are being presented on the table. So let's not ignore it or remove it. It's something that the committee will establish depending on how you're going to respond to us. Lilongwe Mude.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. I have 3 questions which are actually looking for some clarity. So thank you so much, General Dr. Piri, for appearing before the committee, and you have answered so many questions. The first one is, I just want to have confirmation from you, General, if this aircraft, MAF Tango 03, had been used before by the former head of state, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, and had also been used before by the late Vice President before this incident in question. I want that confirmation. My second question, you briefed this committee that at around 10:45 and 1100 hours, you briefed the former head of state about this flight in question. So I want, if you can remember specifically, at what point did the preliminary search operations commence? Was it sooner after briefing the president at 1100 hours or before that time? At what point did the preliminary search operations commence? And the last one, General, is on the platoon that was deployed in Chikangawa forest for the sake of the rest of Malawians, let me say the soldiers that were deployed in Chikangawa forest. Do you remember when they were initially deployed for this purpose of Operation Tetezankalango? When, if you remember, they were initially deployed for this purpose of Tetezankalango. Thank you so much, Chair.
Let me allow Kasungu North so we can progress with time. Can you take the two questions together?
Thank you, Chair, for giving the chance to Kasungu people to ask a question. I've got three questions to the General. One, what lessons should the Malawi Defense Force draw from this tragedy? Secondly, what reforms would you recommend regarding VIP and VIP on transportation, air transportation? Thirdly, is there any matter within your knowledge that the committee has not asked about but ought to consider? Thank you, Chair.
Jenna, you can exhaust those two submissions.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'll start with the questions that I've obtained from the member of Parliament belonging to the committee from Lilongwe Mudi. The first question is use of the aircraft by the former head of state and also the vice president, the late vice president. I want to say yes, these people had been using this aircraft. And I want to mention specific times. There was a time I think the president had gone to the north and had several meetings there. They were two aircrafts which were being used. And this particular aircraft, Tango 03, was the one which the president was using from Mzuzu to Karonga and Karonga and back. So yes, likewise the vice president several times used this aircraft to travel from Blanta and Lilongwe, and also to travel from Lilongwe to Mangochi. So I want to say yes, they were able to use the aircraft, and they were able to actually leave and actually come back through the same platform. The second question was when the preliminary search commenced. If you look at my presentation, you want to understand that straight away, when I was directing the Air Force commander, I mentioned that I think he should actually look around from the or find information from aerodromes around the region, within the northern region. That is, we were looking at Karonga, then we also was also advising to look at Likoma. Over and above that, we're looking at those that within the proximity of the location where the aircraft was going. That was on the left or on the west, Zambia. And we're talking about maybe Lundazi and Chipata. And in the north, we're talking about Lichinga, actually Mbeya in Tanzania. And on the eastern side, we're looking at Lichinga in Mozambique. So basically, when we're talking about commencing preliminary research, these were some of the activities that constituted the preliminary research. So if you ask me, I would say as soon as we actually realized that the aircraft had actually been lost in terms of its signal, then certainly that was the first port of call. We are also talking about aircrafts that were flying in the airspace, or that uses the airspace that actually passes through the area where this aircraft was going. You want to understand that we directed, or I directed, that there should be a deliberate attempt to actually consult or contact Ethiopian Airlines and also Kenya Airways, which I think eventually they responded that they didn't have any sighting nor contact with the aircraft. So I think these were part of the preliminary researches that we were. And in addition, we are talking about also the issue of the phones that the members who were on board the flight that was actually going to Mzuzu. This was all part of this exercise. So commencement is as soon as we realized maybe that this aircraft was missing, then these were the activities that were undertaken at the time. The third question was about soldiers in Chikangawa. I'm not very sure whether I understood the question properly. Was it when they were first deployed?
Yes. So basically, General, I wanted you to inform the committee on when the operation at Tetesankalango started. In other words, when was the platoon first deployed in Chikangawa, if you remember?
I'm not privy to that information, or I'm a bit out of memory for when the soldiers were deployed, but it has been quite a while, because it started because of activities that actually came from locals trying to actually destroy the assets of the forest, in this case the trees. And these actually obtained from, number one, burning, number two, maybe charcoal burning as well, and also illegal logging. Then from this, it was actually agreed that soldiers should be deployed and try as much as possible to prevent these occurrences to be occurred. I think those were the three questions from Lilongwe Mudi. And there are also three questions that have come from Kasungu North. Number one was, I think, lessons learned. The lessons learned, if you ask me, I would point at preparations and also coordination. Coordination to be very important. But over and above that, I think funding levels for some of these activities to take place. For example, if you are talking about a military, you need to understand it has got 4 services. And you want to look at it from the parameters of the Army, you want to look at the Air Force, you want to look at the Navy, and you want to look at what we call the Malawi National Service. Each one is unique in its own way. Why am I saying this? If you look at the Air Force, it has got platforms that actually operate using the airspace, and you also have equipment or ground equipment that actually services them for to be able to efficiently fly, or also to be able maybe to land on the ground. So it is important that there is enough funding that these areas can be attended to, and that the level of effectiveness and efficiency are reached and are always with these functions. Likewise, if you also talk about the Navy, we want to look at the water platforms that actually float on the water surfaces. Very important, because anything can happen. If you don't have enough funding, or if you don't fund this service good enough or enough, you'll find that most of the times they will be wanting. Their capability will actually be degraded. So if they are degraded, certainly you'll be prone to accidents. So I would really want seriousness to actually be imposed when people are requesting for funding. And also maybe to go to the members of parliament that are sitting here in this committee, specifically those that answer, apart from maybe the budget itself, but when you want to look at responding to the budget that come from an institution like the MDF, to consider them. They actually save the nation, because the assets that they look after or that they utilize are not for them, but are for the service of the nation. So the lessons learned is actually a care for equipment and also funding, but also proficiency in terms of maybe operating these platforms. Even the soldiers themselves, there are a number of things that one would want to look at. You want to look at equipment. Every day, forces are modernizing, and modernizing and improving the force image would actually come from what is contemporary, and specifically from the threats that obtain at a particular time. The second question was about reforms. Reforms are really important. And the first reform is maybe to reform the minds and the hearts of those that make decisions to fund these people. So I want to be very honest. Let's reform our minds, because sometimes we negatively respond to say, no, maybe this will be a lot of, maybe will just be a waste of financial resources. Maybe let's reform and try to be open enough so that we can be able to actually fund an institution like the MDF to a level where it can be effective and also efficient in whatever it does in its endeavor to actually service the dictates of what the state looks at in terms of harnessing or husbanding the aspect of security. I also want to look at the third area, which mostly is attached to the reforms. Areas of serious consideration. You want to look at these platforms, which are really very delicate. If you're looking at air platforms, if you're looking at maybe maritime or naval resources, these are assets that actually require a lot of attention in areas of maybe servicing, but also refreshing their outlook. If that is the area that needs to be considered, then I would actually prioritize it to be number one. So there are areas where you want to look at the services and you want to bounce that against the threats that are obtained against the security of the state. By looking at that, then certainly we are going to come up with areas that we need to reinforce and actually renew or maybe improve the equipment and I would say assets that are used by the military. The other area is also interaction between, I think, the civilian component and those that are actually in the service. Maybe regular interaction so that we are aware of what is obtaining.